think, act, and prosper. You are now tuned into the Money Level Show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Money Level Show. We are back at the Rural Symposium for the third day. And today I have Jonathan Lee with me. He is representing LPV, who invests in Vanadium, right? And so we're gonna learn a little bit more about Vanadium and how we can be positioned for the commodities bull market. So John, how you doing today?
Pleasure to meet you, Daryl.
Yeah.
Pleasure to speak with you.
You too. So John, you have, is it okay if I call you John or do?
Sure, that works.
All right, cool. All right, so you have a lot of experience. You know, you've been in a natural resource space for a while. Could you share just a little bit about your background?
Sure, so I was an engineer for 7 years. Went back to business school. Then I was a sell-side analyst covering natural resources, mining companies from 2010 to 2012. Went over to a client of mine who was a hedge fund in the natural resources sector. Ran an activist fund for a couple years, and now I'm at a private equity fund, and all of it's been in the natural resources sector.
Nice. So what would you say are the most interesting natural resources to you? I mean, like what are you normally looking for whenever you're investing in a company or working at a company? Like
So every investment, you look at downside risk and upside potential, right? And you're always looking at where is there upside potential with minimizing downside risk. And so that's high level. That's what we're looking for. Are there situation and investment opportunities where we can get the upside with the limited downside risk?
Yeah. We definitely don't want
better
to lose
price,
money.
better price point, better structure, better capital structure. Those various different things that we look at.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because many investors don't want to lose money, right? You know, and I think that natural resources, like obviously, things don't just go straight up. We saw some charts go straight up over the last few years, right? It comes straight down, right? And so, but just knowing the fundamentals about like resources such as vanadium is important. And so, so what is vanadium, and how does this benefit our world? How's it being used in the markets? How's it being used in the economy? Like, what is vanadium?
Yeah, so vanadium's a alloying, so it's used in a lot of steel products. So think about higher strength steel. So high strength steel is in rebar, in tubes, not tubes, but pipes, in aerospace. So any airplane uses titanium alloys, which contain vanadium. And the emerging applications in these, what they call vanadium flow batteries, which as of 2022 was the second largest use of vanadium outside of steel. So It's really emerging from something that was very small, and it's growing pretty quickly.
What's the trend with so obviously research, you have these new developments, and I'm sure, vanadium's been around since the beginning of time or whatever, the earth or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And so how are you seeing, because obviously lithium has been like a big one recently, with lithium batteries, EV vehicles and such. And so now, we're hearing about something new, and it seems kind of early. Like I haven't heard vanadium, for a while. I think Rick Rule mentioned it once, and then from talking with you. So
so think about it this way. You always want to be in there before the price action. And if you look at where lithium was, I covered lithium stocks in 2010 to 2012. We invested in companies like Lithium Americas. What you saw historically has, over the past 10 years and over the last 7 years, really China has bought up a lot of lithium companies. They bought Talison Lithium. They invested into Lithium Americas. They bought they bought Neo Lithium. So they've invested a lot into various different lithium companies because they needed the lithium for the lithium-ion batteries. So what you saw was the Chinese investing heavily into the lithium, going upstream and investing into lithium mining companies. What you're also seeing now, though, is as vanadium is becoming more, you're seeing basically China investing in vanadium flow batteries. So over the last 7 months, you've seen announcements from the Chinese battery manufacturers of 3.5 gigawatt hours of potential battery storage. And so these vanadium flow batteries are becoming more prevalent, especially in China. They're leading the way. They led the way in lithium. They're probably going to lead the way in vanadium flow batteries. And if you think about what 3.5 gigawatt hours means, that's about 15% of world's demand. It's additional 15% of world's demand of vanadium. Mm-hmm. So, where we see this is the supply dynamics is going to shift with the use of vanadium in these flow batteries. And there's a lot of benefits for these batteries. One, they don't go on fire, so there's no fire risk. Two, they can last a long time. So these batteries can last 25 to 30 years. They can do 10,000 cycles, and they can go what they call depth of discharge. So think about your iPhone that goes from 100% down to 0% or 3%. If you do that continuously with a lithium-ion battery, that battery will last a lot less. Mm-hmm. Now with these vanadium flow batteries, if you do that, what they call depth of discharge, it doesn't affect the quality of the battery or the life of the battery. So those are some of the benefits of these vanadium flow batteries used for grid storage.
Mm-hmm. And what other nations control the majority of the supply of vanadium?
Yeah, so the supply is coming out mostly, so it's about 55% out of China, about 20% out of Russia, about 8% of South Africa, and 7% out of Brazil. And the remaining, then the balance is other parts of the world, but it's a very small percentage if you do the math.
Yep.
So
are there any mines or anything in America, like in the U.S.?
So there is 2 companies that will take what they call spent catalysts. So in the oil refinery business, and you have a catalyst that will remove some material. Those catalysts have to be recycled. So there's a facility in Ohio and a facility in Texas that take those spent catalysts, and through that recycling process of the catalyst, they pull out the vanadium. That's the only vanadium that comes out of the U.S.
It's kind of sad.
Well, look, if you think about how hard a vanadium mine is to produce or to put into production, there's really only been one vanadium mine that has been put online or started in the last 20 years. Wow. So there hasn't been any vanadium mines really, with the exception of one in the last 20 years. None of them are, there are no current vanadium mines that are financed and in construction mm-hmm. at this point.
And you and I, we talked offline about the regulations and how hard it is to even set up a mine here in the States.
Look, there's a permitting process that has to go through, and it's not the easiest to do it in the United States, but you can. It takes a longer time, and you just have to, when you think about making an investment, you have to take those timelines and those risks into consideration and the value you pay on your investment.
Mm-hmm. And I say that because it seems like there is not a lot of companies that work in vanadium, right?
No, most of them are the largest mining. The largest production of vanadium comes from China. So you probably will have never heard of them. Mm-hmm. I know them, but they're in China. There's one in Russia. There's 2 primary vanadium two vanadium mines in South Africa and one in Brazil. So it's a smaller industry where there's not a lot of institutional knowledge.
Yeah, and I say that too because that was the uranium business back in early 2000s. There was a few companies, obviously ever since then more companies got added on, after that bull market, but there was only a few select companies that you could choose from, and so it was higher returns, based off those companies, right?
Yeah, so that's why, in some respects, that's why we formed Largo Physical Vanadium, which is ticker VAND, or on the venture, Toronto Venture, or VANF mm-hmm. On the OTC. And really, it's a lower risk in some respects because we buy and hold physical vanadium, right? So there's no expiration risk, there's no financing risk. We have a clean balance sheet. It's a lower risk opportunity, and you're investing on the ability of the portfolio to increase in value, or the net asset value of the portfolio to increase. And the difference, and there are other commodities that do this, like GLD or SLV or SPUT. Those are all for gold, silver, and uranium. And what they do is they buy physical commodity like us, and they stick it in a warehouse and pay storage fees. What we plan to do, and we're going to have the first one very, very shortly, is instead of paying storage fees, we're going to take that said vanadium and store it in vanadium flow batteries, let it work for us, and generate storage revenues. So instead of paying storage fees, we're going to generate storage revenues, and actually provide the mechanism to drive vanadium demand in flow batteries. Mm-hmm. And we're doing that because the vanadium is by far the largest expense or the largest cost component of a vanadium flow battery. And so now we have a mechanism by which the owner of the vanadium sticks with Largo Physical Vanadium. Yeah. The battery customer pays a rental fee, but never has to buy the most expensive cost component of that battery. Mm-hmm. Thereby driving demand for these batteries, thereby driving vanadium demand. Right. It's a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. That sounds really good. So where can people find out more information? Did you have anything else you wanted to share?
No, I think that's the basic concept. And when I think about the supply demand, China is starting to lead the way on these flow batteries, like I said. And the supply response in all commodities, a new mine or even a expansion of a mine takes time. Yeah. And so you have that time differential between demand increasing and the supply response.
Yeah, agree. So where can people find out more information about LPV and just all the great things that you
Sure. So it's the website is www.lpvanadium.com, and sign up for the monthly newsletter. We do a monthly newsletter every month just to keep our investors and our shareholders up to speed on what's going on in the vanadium market.
Okay, awesome. I'll be sure to leave that link in the description below. Thank you, John, for coming on. Appreciate your time and everything.
Thanks for having me, Daryl.
All right, yeah.